We're here to explore who we are. Who are you, really? What are you? Where did you come from? What are you made of? Why is it that the patterns in our bodies are like the patterns we see on the planet? In the plants and the animals, the life, the flow of nature. Why is it that the spiral of a galaxy is the same as a nautilus shell? What connects the universe together? What unites us? We're all just figuring out what's going on the surface and what's going on at the deeper layers. We are an event horizon. And then we become the one and the zero. We complete ourselves. We perceive ourself. I know that I am. I know that I've been back there. I know that I'm going this direction and I have the power to choose. And now I can be conscious of others. A flowing field of energy moving around and through my body. That this energy is tangible. You will feel the tingle of entanglement. You begin to craft your mind as a crystal, as a structure that you can fit things into.
Are we being visited by beings from other dimensions? It feels like we've been asking this question since the beginning of time. I'm curious, how have these answers evolved through the ages? My name is Ruben Langdon, and in 2014 I started communicating with beings from other dimensions. Well, more like interacting with these beings through the people who channel and experience them. It was so profound that I began recording these conversations so that I could share them with the world. If you could interview an extra-dimensional being, what kind of questions would you ask? How about the meaning of life? Or the secrets of the universe? Maybe you're just curious about who they are and where they come from, like me. Join me on a journey into other dimensions, and let's explore these new worlds together.
Adam Apollo.
Ruben Langdon.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Martial artist.
Indeed.
Public speaker. Futurist, scientist, teacher, programmer, Academy architect, designer, Galactic ambassador, cryptic encoder. You've got so many titles, it's amazing. You wear many hats, my friend.
I do.
You wear them well.
Thank you.
We just came back from Contact in the Desert, did an awesome number of workshops and presentations and standing ovations from the audience. The interaction and the talk, people were saying, Adam Apollo. How did you get to this spot where now you're speaking at a UFO conference, the largest one, we have now?
Yeah.
And you have so much knowledge and information on so many subjects, from sacred geometry to self-empowerment to our galactic history to coding and engineering, as we were talking as well. So, wow, what happened in between?
Yeah. A lot of it started around the time I was about 15 years old. And as an early teenager, I was a pretty disgruntled kid. I was depressed. I felt like a lot of what I was being taught in school were lies. Teachers couldn't give me the answers that I was really looking for. And I had gone through a pretty intense, life trauma where my stepmother, was my dad's love of his life, died in a car accident while I was on my way back from India, spending a week or two at this spiritual center, and came out of this space where I was experiencing things that I hadn't quite ever encountered before. People spontaneously bursting into song and crying and having these very cathartic experiences. It really got me to start questioning everything in my life. I had some really intense questions that had not been answered yet. And I was lucky enough to have a really amazing older friend. His name's Chris Oriana. He and I would sit and philosophize, talk about reality and the nature of the universe. So we set out to do some experimentation. Said, well, let's try putting our fingers together like this and focusing on the space between our fingertips and just slowly separate it and see if we could maybe feel where we're looking at that space. And of course, when I did that as a 15-year-old kid, and I felt this tangible magnetic force and tingling in my fingertips, and then I saw this stream of smoky like light moving between my fingers, and instantly something just popped inside my head. I had full body chills. It was like I found the force and that it was real. And my life instantly changed overnight. I suddenly could not stop playing with my energy body, and I was testing it, and I'd put something over across the room and then I'd see if I could locate it with my hand. We started doing blindfolded martial arts, and I started having all of these downloads about energy, how it moves and how it flows, and where does this experience of matter come from? Where does the experience of emotions come from? How do we create frameworks of thought? And literally went on a trail for a couple years of recovering what I've come to call my Akashic library. And I realized I had been storing away my information and all of my downloads through my existence in some kind of space that at the right time I could unlock that space and regain that knowledge. And I found that just by doing a certain move in a certain direction or focusing energy in a certain way, nature would respond to me. The wind would blow and flow, or a bird would suddenly come out of the place that I was focusing on. And I realized that I'm in communication with the universe. And was fortunate enough to find different websites and writings of different people that not only confirmed some of the experiences I was having, but pointed me in the direction of certain ancient spiritual traditions where people had already had these experiences. They'd already connected to this fundamental field. And I thought, I was alone. I was like, why isn't this is not in school? Never been taught this. Nobody's ever told me this. And yet, I then over time start to find out that a lot of the ancient earth religion traditions, from Druidry to Wicca to indigenous cultures around the world. And then all the way, of course, to the other side, the Taoist traditions, the martial arts traditions, which has always been a deep inspiration and passion for me in my life, is movement as a form of art. And I found that, they all referenced this fundamental field, whether it was called chi or prana or ki or life force energy or great spirit or you name it. And I realized, okay, this is real, and this is something ancient, and for some reason it's missing from our current science and our current understandings. So I dove into science. Where is this fundamental field? Where is this energy? And that search led me to discover that they were actually pretty smart after all, and they were in fact looking very realistically at the nature of space-time, and that ether was actually a part of physics all the way up until the early 1900s, and discovered that, Einstein had basically played a part in wiping the ether out from our physics because of his work in special relativity, which proved how light could interact with light. But then 10 years later, comes out with general relativity, in which space-time is this fundamental fabric and structure, and realizes, well, of course, you can't have this space-time structure and these fundamental properties to space-time without an ether.
So you've been on this scientific quest to find the missing links. And from what I've seen from this past weekend, you've done a pretty good job of connecting the dots.
Thank you.
What is the unified harmonic matrix in Adam's theory of everything, right? Or are those two the same, or?
So early on in this process, I had a vision. There was just this moment where I kind of phased out, and the next thing I knew, I was in this vision. And the vision was showing me how every layer of the entire universe, starting with my own eyeball and my own body and the plane around me and the earth around me, to how the moon rotates around the earth, to the solar system, to the galaxy, were all connected in similar patterns. And then eventually I began to see the entire universe as actually part of an energetic thread that was creating protons, creating the fabric of space itself. And then I saw how the same patterns that form the nucleus of an atom and the way that the electrons flow around that nucleus and chain together to create amino acids in DNA is exactly the same kind of rotational, energetic, vibrational lensing that we see as the solar system is traveling through the galaxy and rotating and spiraling with other stars in these very consistent high-level gravitational relationships. And I realized through this vision that showed me the smallest stuff in the universe, being composed of the biggest things in the universe, that there is this perfect connection between the macrocosm and the microcosm, and also the biocosm inside of us. And then also what I call the metacosm, which is sort of the space in which we are having our human experience. And I started working to put the pieces together for how this pattern worked. I began to realize that my own discovery process of energy and of ether and of the nature of the universe itself progressed through a sequence that I came to be aware of was awakening each one of my chakras, one after another. And each one of my chakras, I realized, was like a vibrational energy structure that connected to one aspect of the physics of the universe and the phenomenology of our experience.
And all this was in that moment?
The whole thing happened literally in less than a second, this huge vision.
Wow.
But my translation of it and my understanding of it and the journey through my chakras and seeing how each one of these micro and macrocosmic layers fit to the chakric understanding literally happened over 3 years. I came to a state of sort of mastery around it by the time I was 18, and I decided to do my senior project in high school as the unification of science and spirituality through unified field theoretics.
physics, theory of spirituality, connecting the dots between different worlds.
Basically.
Okay, one more
Yes.
time.
Yeah, sure. It's the unification of
Unification.
science and spirituality through unified field theoretics.
Through unified field theoretics. And that's your paper when you were 18. You did this
Yeah, I was in high school.
in high school.
My teachers thought, what is this kid doing?
Yeah.
He's studying graduate level physics and integrating it with spiritual traditions from all over the world and trying to form a unified field framework. I mean, I got a high grade. I got like a 96 on the
that's
thing,
great.
so not too bad.
Yep.
Pretty good for a full, semester long project. So.
Wow. But to have that inspiration and ask those questions at such a young age, in your generation, your time,
Yeah, nobody was asking these questions.
Exactly.
I found myself with friends that became like apprentices to me in high school because they wanted to learn what it was I was learning.
Right.
And, these kinds of things it was not just a mental journey for me. It was not just like, I'm going to figure out how space-time works and then I'll provide a theory to everyone. And no, it was more like I was experiencing reality showing me a key. And as I was experiencing the universe reflecting this key back to me, miracles were happening.
Right. Unlike some other scientists, you had a unique perspective because you started physically having these experiences.
Yeah.
And the physical experiences of connecting to the chi and everything else were helping feed the science. The science was helping feed the physical, and you were
That's right.
on this path of connecting those worlds.
Yeah, and then I'd have these friends that were like, what was that just what did you just do? What just happened just now?
Right.
And I'd start at the basics and I'd show them a ball of chi and let them feel it on their hand, and they'd go, dude, what is that?
Well, we had that
what
at
did you
at the conference.
That's
And,
right.
you were teaching that same thing.
Yeah.
And just watching everybody light up. And I've been, most of my life a martial artist, so I've done qigong and tai chi and pagua and all those different martial arts that do that. So I've had those lights go on, but here you are, super simplified. I'd never seen it presented in that way. I've always done it, through this kind of stuff. It was so beautiful watching the light up of these people had experienced it for the first time.
Yeah. That's just step one.
I know.
I mean, that was my first step when I was 15.
That's amazing, though.
And so where you can go from there
Right.
is pretty awesome.
On a bigger scale, what are some of these other ways of your teaching these connecting the dots?
Well, you mentioned, you're coming out here at Contact in the Desert.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I've been out speaking for a very, very long time.
I know. I first heard about you in 2011. After seeing you in Lightning Bottle, I was so mesmerized. I went online and I started seeing all the talks, and you were talking at, you've talked at the White House. What really sucked me in was you were talking about starships, holodecks, and replicators, which I'm a super hardcore Trekkie and grew up in that world.
Yeah,
And
Gene Roddenberry's a genius, by the way.
Genius.
Let me just say.
And you were just like going into it, and I could see it. I got so inspired by your talks. I think it felt like it was at a university or something. You were on stage, and you had your presentation.
Yeah, that was a talk I did at the University of North Carolina in Asheville.
Yeah.
Tech 2012. Starships, replicators, and energy systems.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah.
I think I watched that like 5 times. I loved it.
Thank you.
And why aren't you like president? Or at least up there in that, you
Yeah.
talk so eloquently. The information is solid. It's scientifically proven. I mean, I know a lot of the scientific community doesn't want to fully go there yet, but you're connecting those dots.
Yeah. So it's taken a very long time for the scientific community to really come on board. And Nassim and I became friends somewhere in the early 2000s, 2005, 2006. And he, I felt like, was the most on track of someone who was really working out the math and the science of the physics to be able to start proving these things.
Right.
But in those days, I also felt like he was missing a lot of the equation. And I could see certain aspects of what this quantum gravitational lattice looked like that I didn't hear him talking about, and I didn't hear anybody else talking about. And that's where I really found my own drive to do that work. And I also realized that one of the best ways to do it was through education, because this project got me really thinking about the importance of coming at education from a more holistic manner. And I began to look at the process of learning from that framework and thinking about the fact that in order to really grasp or master knowledge, you need to have a physical experience of it, an emotional experience of it, a mental experience of it. You have to have shared it with somebody.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to communicate about it. And usually, once you've gotten through all of that, you start to have higher level realizations and insights about what it is that you're seeking to learn. And that realization that the chakras and literally our energetic bodies framework is designed particularly to learn by adapting information from many different aspects of our connection with everything for how we can learn holistically and integrate all of the information that we experience around us.
When and where did the ET thing come in? Because that's we're here, talking to extra dimensionals, and you're a fine example of this extra dimensional construct that I'm doing in my series. But
We are all very multidimensional beings.
yes, we all are. So when did that come into play?
I'd already, through my explorations of science, known that we're not alone.
Yep.
And that there's got to be many, many, many species out there. Plus, I'd seen a few things that definitely didn't appear to be human to me in the sky. And so going to Stephen Greer's talk, meeting all of these people who are taking this information very seriously, and they're investigating these different phenomena. And I began to become really curious about it myself. Even still, I didn't have much to go with besides here's people disclosing this information, here's data.
Right.
But my personal experiences were still fairly limited to just having seen a ship flying through the sky.
At what point in time did you go from realizing that the UFO phenomenon is real, from obviously your experiences, but just solidifying it with, it's a big thing, a lot of people are having these experiences, to your actual contact experience?
That was 2005.
Okay.
And the bridge to get there was the past life experiences I started having in 2000 of Atlantis. And that was really the first one. I was sitting in my older friend's dorm room. I was still in high school at the time, but he went to University of North Carolina, Asheville. And so I was sitting in his dorm room with my other friend, Charles Wu. And the three of us were kind of like brother magi who worked with each other to integrate and explore a lot of these discoveries. Each of them had their own threads on energy and metaphysics and DNA and consciousness. And so they were a great sounding board for me to explore what I was discovering, and also for me to integrate the insights and knowledge that they were gaining. And we're sitting in the dorm room, we're talking about how it is that manifestation happens, and that it requires a connection between a physical state and an emotional state or an etheric vibration, and a mental state or an astral construct, a geometry that's vibrating, and then a physical place where that action can come through, and boom, manifestation happens. And as we come kind of to this full dialed, clear realization, suddenly it was as if the walls just disappeared, and we're all standing in this huge, huge temple, massive crystal pillars, and we're standing around this crystal altar right in front of us. And we're literally storing these light codes into this pillar and saving all of this knowledge into this crystal that's transmitting the energy down into the earth. And all three of us, as we snapped back out of it, were like, whoa, Atlantis.
So the
And
three of you
we
had this
just
shared
knew.
experience.
Yes.
Wow.
And we all had dreams about it after that too. And the dreams involved a lot more detail of people going down to the ocean, and there are going to be giant tsunamis coming, and they were just surrendering. Others had already fled into the mountains and into the larger land masses. And some of us were in our temples storing this knowledge for the future away. Of course, at this time I was about like 17, and I didn't really know what to do with that information. It was just another data point, just like all of the other downloads and realizations. I was just putting it in my data library, like, okay, maybe I was alive in Atlantis. I've never even thought about reincarnation, but I started to, at that point, consider it.
How did you start getting these other snippets of this reality, of these past lives? When did they start coming through?
Yeah, so when I was in college, one of the times I was sitting in the dorm room, and by this time I'm dating the roommate, I'll just say.
Okay.
And this girl, Rachel, who's sitting on her bed, who's the one I felt the strongest attraction to, I look over at her, and all of a sudden, I'm in a medieval ballroom. And she has her hair up in this bun and this elaborate, beautiful dress. And I could smell the oil lamps burning on the walls and the mustiness of the tapestries hanging. I could feel the pressure of my armor. It was ornamental, like ball style armor, but still armor, and the straps, pressure on my body, ornamental sword at my side. And I'm discussing with these two lords, you know, with goatees and beards and their own like family crests on their arm, how to protect grain trade between these two cities, between our lands. And we are figuring out how to stop these brigands from basically assaulting our grain trains as they were going through this particular valley, and trying to stop the ambushes from happening. As I looked over at her, I knew this was like the love of my life. This is the woman that I wanted to be with. And she's giggling and laughing with her two ladies, and just every detail of the feeling and the emotion of how deeply I loved her and how deeply I was connected to her was right there. And then I'm back in the dorm room, and I'm like blinking and looking at the two 18-year-old kids I'm sitting with, and they're looking at me and they say, "Adam, are you okay?" And I was like, "I need some water." So I get up, I go out into the hall, and I go to the water fountain that's like out in the hall, and I'm drinking water, and I'm just like, oh my God, what just happened to me? And I go back into the room, and inside the door, there's bathrooms that are shared between two dorm rooms, and Rachel's in there washing her face off. And I look at her, and she looks up at me, and she's like, did you? And I was like, oh my God, you did too? And I knew we'd shared the experience. And of course, I'm dating her roommate. So this is the beginning of quite a challenging time period.
It sounds like a nice whole episode. We could go off into many episodes on this stuff.
Indeed. And it was really just the first trigger. I then saw her across the field in the middle of campus, and she became a Japanese woman with a basket behind her head. And I was a samurai in a mask with my katana and wakizashi and my horse, watching her walk to the village. And I knew her husband was beating her. And I felt this intense pain around that. And then I went to a Halloween party, and we had a friend, this guy, John, who came, and he gets really, really drunk. And none of us, she or I didn't really even know him that well. And we hadn't told anybody about our experiences, because I'm still trying to break up with the roommate. This is all happening really fast. And he gets just wasted, and he starts crying and apologizing to me for all of these crimes he did against me in the Middle Ages. And as he's saying it, I'm remembering him taking her on his boat and, you know, basically seducing her and then like dealing with that at backlash. And she comes back to me, and now he's coming to my castle with an army to lay siege to my castle. He's burning villages. I stop it by getting him to come in my courtyard and battle me one-on-one to the death, and we killed each other. And I ended it. I knew that I was either gonna die or I was gonna kill him and maybe die. And I remember the exact way it happened. I remember opening up just like this and letting his sword go into my gut and then cutting him through.
Wow.
And falling to the stones and seeing her face crying, and remembered leaving my body and actually seeing myself laying there and her and having this experience of crossing over into the spirit world. And since he had no idea any of these things that she and I were going through, and he's calling us by our names from that time, I knew that this was something I had to take very seriously and began to research myself and actually track it. This was not just some fantasy of liking a girl and wanting to be with her. It was real memory of real times and real emotions and real experiences that I needed to deal with now.
How did you deal with that? Did you end up hooking up with Rachel?
Deep breath. I did.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
She and I ended up being together some months after all of this, and after the storm passed of breaking up with her roommate. They were best friends. And of course, us discovering that they were both born on the exact same day, within hours of each other. And that the guy that I thought that Rachel was into when we first started all hanging out was born on the same day as me, within a couple hours of me. And as that synchronicity surfaced, it all made sense. We just kind of got some wires crossed. But that there was some deeper purpose for us being together.
Sure.
And over the years, Rachel and I, we were together for about 4.5 years. We experienced many, many, many lifetimes of memory and had to process through a lot of karmas with each other and with people that were coming into our lives and remembering us, or that we would remember them, and started to rebuild this sort of soul family at a really deep level where many of us had been together lifetime after lifetime and needed to find each other again now, sometimes to resolve things, and other times really just to gain that level of depth of connection and knowledge of each other.
Yeah, because if it was just you, you wouldn't be able to get that full realization. You'd have to have somebody to reflect off of, right?
Yeah.
Or several people in the sense of the other friend.
You need data. You need data. If you're going to do what I came to understand is I was doing transpersonal psychology, and in transpersonal psychology, you need data. I can't remember exactly what happened to me in kindergarten, but if I hang out with a friend who I went to kindergarten with, we could talk about kindergarten all day, because we'll remember the different things that we went through at that time with each other. Yeah.
What happens next?
So I went on a journey for many years integrating these past life memories and aspects of myself. And that journey led me through a lot of amazing experiences, including holding sacred fire ceremony with indigenous elders from around the world, to doing the prayer runs for world peace with Orville Looking Horse and his family and helping his daughter organize those. And that journey to the Black Hills of South Dakota, the first prayer run for world peace in 2005, led me to the West Coast. And that got me to go to Burning Man for the first time. And I'm experiencing this space that is one of the most incredible expressions of human creativity on the planet. Just every aspect of the city is built from somebody's imagination and created into this like amazing temple or play space or whatever. And it can be anything you could imagine. So there's Greek temples, there's old Japanese tea rooms, there's spaces from different cultures and time periods, you know, whiskey piano bars with cowboys. And talk about an amazing space to work with how your consciousness integrates many different aspects of yourself at many different times. And this led to the night of the burn, where the man itself is burned and everybody runs around the man and just huge parties, and it's an amazing experience. But I went into that night knowing that there was some deeper symbolic nature to this burning of the man. And I decided to make it a spiritual journey that night and to really, really go to the fire as a spiritual fire and run and dance around the fire and chant and practice my inner work, develop my inner energy, and to use that as the fuel of the magic for my experience that night. Where many people would be just like taking heavy drugs or getting drunk or doing whatever, I really wanted it to be the peak of my experience. And so I wanted to be as clear and as grounded and as totally present as possible. And that led me to meeting my mother and father from the age of Atlantis. I walked back to my camp after the man had burned, and I'd been in this shamanic state of chanting, and I was in this very deep state of stillness in myself. And my father walks into the camp at the same time, and it's somebody that I knew. But as he approaches the camp, I see him and know him as my father, and we're in this deep, ancient forest, and he has slightly pointed ears and looks kind of half elven, and I realize I do too, and that this is my father. And as soon as we see each other, we just know. Both of us instantly know. And we hug each other, and it was this deep, powerful, potent hug. This led to a process where he and I went about clearing this karma with my mother from Atlantis, who, interestingly enough, we both realized was a woman that we'd interacted with separately and individually on the playa that year. But we both knew who exactly it was. And as we went through this journey of healing this relationship with her and the attachments that she had with us, the cables that she had placed on us or in us to try to keep us aligned to the family mission that we had at that time, and broke away from that, the pain of that breakaway was somehow still there among us, the three of us.
The gentleman who represented your father and hugged you, did he also again have the shared experience?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
He knew that he was my father, and we both knew immediately that we just had this memory in order to clear this karma with my mother from that time.
Wow.
So we sought out to find her.
Okay. That night?
That night.
Okay.
That's what
After
we
you
did
had
next.
your bro hug.
It's time. Let's go
Yeah.
find mom and let's clear some stuff, you know? So we go to the places where we thought she might be. We even had her like water bag with us, and she wasn't there. And we ended up just kind of heading out into the playa because we felt like maybe she's there at that fireplace in the distance. There seems to be a lot of people converging there. Let's go there. And on the way, we started talking through the healing process, the releasing of the attachments, the why we needed to go and why we needed to leave her and where that pain had come from. And energetically started working with the field of where and how in our bodies this pain was stored in both of us, that we both felt really deeply. And we found that this giant fire sculpture that we were heading towards out in the middle of the desert was a massive phoenix. And it was the wings of a phoenix coming up and the belly of a phoenix. And she wasn't there. And we decided that we were gonna leave the water there. We were gonna finally drop the thing. We were gonna let go. Done, you know, this is enough. We don't need to carry this anymore. This is the final step. Let's put this with the fire. And we left her stuff there with the fire and walked out of the Phoenix and sort of were reflecting on the healing experience that we'd been through, but I still felt like this deep hollow space, like as if I'd just gutted a bunch of old funk out of my body or my system, and now I was like empty and hungry and as if there was a hole in my auric field.
Right.
And he felt the same way. And we found ourselves walking towards this beautiful sculpture set of a mother who had fire pouring out of her hands into the hand of an upstretched child. And we just went before this beautiful mother altar, and I went down on the ground and put my head on the ground, and instantly I was going into the earth, and I felt Gaia, I felt the mother of the planet and the infinite mother, the true mother, enfolding me and wrapping me in light, and she just literally filled up my entire body with energy. She filled all the holes, patched all the wounds, and it was like I'd somehow taken this false replacement of my mother that was my first human mother, as I would come to discover. I'd somehow put her in the way of my connection to this Gaia mother. And this deeper mother, and not permanently, but there was some piece there that was cut off. And as I had this experience, I heard her voice say, get up and run back through my footsteps. And I get up off the ground, and my friend Will, he looks at me, and we're like, and we both hear it. We stand up and we run around her, and we start running through the desert and realizing that she had flaming footsteps laid into the playa that was part of this art piece. And as I ran back through the footsteps, I became very, very aware of the fact that I'd had this journey through time from Atlantis and to now, and I was thrown into these memories of how I had moved through all of these lifetimes and how I had faced these major intense moments of struggle and pain, of killing someone or almost being killed, and had to come to a place of reconciliation around all of it. And in that process of getting there, I knew that there was something before Atlantis, something that I needed to discover. And the only way I could discover that was to go out into the middle of the desert on my own. So I run out into the middle of the desert by myself. I leave Will, we're cool. He's got his own journey to go on. And as I'm running, I start experiencing my partner's body as my own body, this woman that I had been on this lifetime journey with through Earth lifetimes. And I'm experiencing her as me, and she's not there, of course. She's sleeping in her bed in Asheville, North Carolina. And yet later, months later, after this experience, she was dreaming that she was in the desert with me and having this experience with me. And we come to this art piece, which was like a prism and a rainbow of light coming out of the ground. And for some reason, I was just guided. I mean, everything was like guidance right now, You just do what you know you're supposed to do. So I go and I stick my head in this thing, and suddenly I'm in the Sirian star system on this planet that I'd had a dream about in high school, where there was 2 suns, and I had a house and an observatory, and I'm there sitting in the observatory where you could, even with the brightness of the sun sky in the observatory, you could see the different star patterns through the ceiling. And I'm sitting across from her, and we are literally weaving our chakras together like a DNA strand, forming a bond to get ready to travel to another planet and leave our bodies. We're going to die and go and incarnate in another world, and that world is Earth. And as I'm seeing this weaving happen, we both decide that it's time to unweave this knot. It's time to let this bond go that we came to this world with, this contract that had somehow bound us to help us remember who we are and to remember each other and to remember why we came. And so I began seeing it unweave, and we're sitting across from each other, unweaving this field. And as soon as it releases, and I'm saying, I free you, Restara Amarisa, I free you, and speaking to her all these names that I'd remembered of these different lives, and I'm hearing her speaking my names across lives. And as it releases, suddenly it was like, and I had all these flashes of her memories as a woman across all of these different times. as a geisha and as a priestess and in her services and in her work and in her inner self and as a mother bearing a child and all these flashes of being a woman. And she, in that dream, at home, got all these downloads of me and her as me, as a man, as a warrior, as a king, as a leader, as a sage, doing all of the things that I had done. And along with all of those downloads of Earth memories, I became unshakably clear about the fact that I was a Sirian ambassador. I was from another star system, and I remembered quite clearly having a ton of my friends and family from different worlds all planning to go to Earth together and making this pact that we're going. And we're gonna meet up there, and it's the middle of the Ice Age on Earth, and this civilization is building up, and technology is building up, culture is building up, a renaissance is happening, and we saw that it was possible that at this time on Earth, people could make a leap to becoming part of our galactic community. It was the greatest show to be part of on Earth. We all wanted to come in and to help that process and support humanity in making that great transition. And that is why I came to this planet.
So at that time, the vision you were seeing was sort of a potential of us having that galactic connection at that time, which I guess it sounds like we did.
We did to an extent.
Okay.
But we
not
didn't
fully.
make the leap of having full galactic technologies and actually having humanity join the rest of this council of species. The Earth wasn't ready for it yet.
Okay.
You know, I look at that time as the fall of the Tower of Babel, where, you know, we're trying to reach the gods, so to
Right.
speak. But it's not some anger of an angry God
Sure.
trying to cast people back down to their place.
Right.
It's much more like Gaia's energetic body just simply wasn't ready. And I look at it as her throat chakra blowing open. And that opening for her meant lots of new water and also lots of new communication and languages and going deeper into the understanding and the communion with the lands that was required for the people to do. Because there were so many people coming in who were star beings from other worlds, and they hadn't had the time to really get to know her. And so many of us chose to stay, of course, after that cataclysm.
And sort of go through the next cycle, go in deeper,
All the way
connect
to
in,
now.
All the way to now. Fascinating. Wow. So to actually have those visions, to have those experiences, to relive those emotions, what was it like when you're feeling those emotions to come here? But then you must have at some point realized that, I hate to use the word failed, but that point in time, that Atlantean time when we, you know, if your mission is to come here to connect our galactic family,
Yeah.
and oops, we didn't quite, we connected, but not really. And here we are, you know, 26,000 years later. 13,000 years
Yeah.
later, going, now we're getting to do it, you know.
Yeah. That's it.
That's it?
I didn't feel a sense of failure.
Okay.
I felt, my God, it's time now. And so I wanted to go make contact. I was now standing in the middle of the desert. I've just freed a soul bond with a soul partner that I've had for 13,000 years. I have memory of who I am as a galactic ambassador, and it's time for me to go have a talk with my family and find out what's the schedule, where are we at, is it time or what?
I've heard this about Sirians. I heard that they, you know, this coming through Lisa Royale and the channelings, that they have the patience, more patience than any other star system out there. And they like to watch the grass grow, so to say, you know, or not
Yes.
like to, but they can. They have no problem watching the grass grow. So
yes.
you guys have the patience to sit 13,000 years and sort of see it come through. How do you feel now about things?
If you sing long enough to a tree, it will become your home. This is a saying that we have in the Sirian system. And I knew that the time cycle was essential for all of us that had come here to really get to know this beautiful library of consciousness that is Earth. And without having had that time, who knows? I would never really know humanity. And also, so many of these star species that came in, whether from the Sirian system or the Pleiades or the Arcturian system or Shihalio or from the Ionian system, all of these different star people that came here, it also gave them an opportunity to get to know each other as the same species.
Right.
On one world where you don't have a ship that you can just go bail.
Yeah. When things get tough, right?
Yeah, things get tough. You gotta face it.
Yeah.
You gotta face the truth.
Wow. So that, it sounds like having those, again, going to this full package of, Adam's theory of everything, the unified field, now you're connecting in past life emotions, not just the current life emotions.
That's right.
Past life emotions, geometry, frequency, vibration, the whole gamut of things, and you're able to now connect the dots through the chakra systems, connecting to the colors, connecting to the emotions.
Well, I came to find in the years following this night and the experiences that I had that night, that so much of my knowledge was knowledge I had brought from other worlds. And I'd been keeping this library for much longer than I could remember, even across galactic lifetimes. And been a teacher of it and used it to develop new technologies, and starship engines and piloting systems. And I'd always felt like there was some call to doing higher technology development in me, beyond website building and branding. But that night was also a gateway to what that might actually look like. I went deeper into the desert, and I found the same night.
Wow.
I found an art piece that I knew for some reason was there for me to do this work with. And the art piece looked like a pyramid from a distance with a light shooting out the top of it. But as I got closer to it, I realized it was a cone, and it had laser light projecting stars rotating and swirling around it. So it looked like a transparent vortex of stars going up and then shooting into the sky. Stargate Temple, perhaps, anyone?
Wow.
And went inside this space and began a process inside of the space of seeing. I began to really use the space outside of me as a mirror of what I was trying to do inside my own consciousness. And inside the space, there was a certain lighting pattern going on in the ceiling, and I could tell immediately that this lighting pattern was somehow being manifested by these two discs, control panels that were in the space, and that while there was light coming from both of them, one was cut off from the rest of the entire light network that was above me in this space. And I knew that that was a symbolic mirror of our star system and our experience here on Earth, and how we feel so separated from everything else out there. And yet all around us is life in communication and in connection. And so I set out to fix this problem inside this space as a metaphysical practice to actually engaging the communication between our worlds and these other species out there. And it's a long story of how this went down, but it involved basically toning to these control panels with other people that came into the space with me. And through doing that, we reactivated them, and a series of downloads happened, and other people came in at the right moment. And in this process, we finally built a bridge between these light networks. And this sort of static, linear, human way of thinking found a bridge to the rotational, cyclical, synchronistic sort of way of thinking that the galaxy embodies. And it was literally sitting there looking at this last piece of light show up in the space. And I'm sitting with a guy who said to me, you know, right now in my life, I feel like I've done everything, and anything could happen right now. Anything could happen, and I'd be open to it. And the download I got from that was, wow, I wonder how many people are like that, where they just are tired of their lives, they're tired of what's happened to them, and anything could happen. And what if it's that openness? What if it's just that little piece of, I'm open to anything right now that's needed for us to make contact. And I smiled at him and I looked up, and there was a woman standing in the space studying me. And she was looking at me, but she was not human.